I was on a mission to get justice for Shanann, Nico, Bella, and Celeste. They deserved to have their story told.
I think about, like, did I cause this?
What in the world is going on?
Hey, are you Chris?
Chris, yes.
A lot of it wasn't adding up.
The disappearance of a pregnant Frederick woman and her 2 children has captured the nation's attention.
This house is not complete without anybody here.
We see a lot of horrible stories where a husband kills his wife, but this one's different.
We're hearing from the suspect and his side of the story, a story police just don't believe.
I could tell Chris was not comfortable with me rubbing his shoulder, but I was okay with that. I wanted him to be uncomfortable.
When he asks to speak to his father, the risk you run is he lawyers up, this interview's over.
The district attorney says that he believes that Chris Watts will never reveal the full details of how or why he killed his family. He went on to say that this is a case that is actually going to haunt the folks who worked on it probably for the rest of their lives.
It is crucial that once he's put in jail, he's never getting out.
So if it did have something to do with their disappearance, it would be really stupid for you to come in and take a polygraph.
Come give me a hug. Oh.
I can't get that image out of my head.
My name's Nicole, and I'm calling because I'm concerned about a friend of mine. She's 15 weeks pregnant, and she wasn't feeling well over the weekend, and I have called and texted. I've come to her house. She's not answering the door. She's not responding to text messages, phone calls. I've had other friends reach out to her. None of us can get her to respond to us, and her car is here.
What's her name?
Shanann Watts.
And her husband's name is?
His name is Chris Watts. I just want to know if she's okay.
This was one of the worst, if not the worst, cases I've ever had in 19 years of police work. This one does not make sense to me.
It was just too strange, too baffling for it not to leave a lasting impact in your head about how does this happen?
I was diagnosed with some health challenges, and then I met Chris. I was in a really, really, really bad place, and I got a friend request from Chris on Facebook, and I was like, oh, what the heck, I'm never gonna meet him. Except, one thing led to another, and 8 years later, we have 2 kids, we live in Colorado, and he's the best thing that has ever happened to me.
Shanann was definitely a people person. She had a great laugh, a great smile, a great sense of humor. And she was a very loving, caring, outgoing person. Chris worked for an oil company. He was a mechanic. And Chris was quiet, but he was real friendly about helping people with the cars and stuff like that. And Shanann was a marketing person who was able to work from her house. That's what gave her the opportunity to stay at home with her children, which was her #1 passion. Bella was 4. She was definitely more the quiet thinker, really happy, really go-lucky. She would always wave and say hi whenever we were out in the backyard and they were outside playing. Cece was 3, and she was an absolute firecracker. And it would always make you smile just to hear her laugh because she had that really loud, just belly laugh. Chris and Shanann seemed to be wonderful parents.
We did it again. Really?
Really.
That's awesome.
Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant with a little boy that she was going to name Nico.
Guess when you want to, it happens.
They had the 2.5 kids. They had a nice, beautiful house. They both had great careers that, from what it seemed, that they definitely loved. And they just seemed to be that all-American great family.
a party who's checking on a friend who's pregnant, who's not answering the door.
There was a sense of urgency on the part of Nicole Atkinson because of who Shanann was. Shanann lived her entire life through social media, through her phone. It was very unlike Shanann not to answer the phone, not to at least send a text. And so that, I think, raised the level of concern and fear very early on in this process.
How you guys doing?
Hi.
Here, Nicole?
Yes.
Officer Coonrod from the Frederick Police Department responded to this call for service. He makes contact with Nicole and her son.
I've called, I've texted. Her car's in the garage, her shoes she wears every single day right in the front door.
Even before Nicole called Frederick Police, she had reached out to Shanann's husband. His response to her was, oh, she was going on a play date today with the girls, she must be there. She told him that she was going to call the police, and Watts' response was, well, hold on a minute, I'm on my way back, I'll be there in 45 minutes.
They have the thing flipped up here.
Oh, what about the garage door?
I don't
Is
know.
there, I'm just gonna check the back, see if I can see anything. How you doing? You seen your neighbors today? No? Okay. Oh, we're just trying to get a hold of her.
Yeah, I think she's diabetic, to be honest.
Oh, is she?
Something with her blood sugar, I thought. We were thinking about Shanann maybe having a spike in her blood pressure or drop in her blood pressure, and she might be in the house unconscious with the girls. And we were thinking, okay, we need to figure out how to get into this house.
What's Chris's phone number? Hey, Chris, Officer Coonrod for the police department. Pretty good. So, do you have any idea where your wife is? Okay. Right. Well, my concern is her car's here. They're saying she is diabetic. I don't want her if she's upstairs and can't respond. About how far out are you? Okay. All right. Thanks. This female is diabetic. Unknown if she is home, though. Husband is on his way. Police department, if anyone's inside, make yourself known. Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything out of place. I'm not hearing kids. I'm not hearing anything. Scott, how you doing?
How's it going?
So this is the only vehicle she would have?
Only one that, yeah.
She would drive? Okay.
The fact that Shanann's car was still in the garage, the car seats that belonged to Celeste and Bella were still in the car. It didn't sound like there was anybody in the home. The house was locked up from the inside. So these few things starting to add up to the officers like, this isn't right. There's something uncomfortable about what I'm walking into here.
Mind if I come in, Chris? Okay. You checked upstairs, she's not there. I just want to make sure she's not passed out somewhere. Is she diabetic? You mind if I look around? Okay, thanks.
From the beginning, Chris Watts was very compliant and very cooperative. That allowed us to search the Watts residence.
All the girls' blankets are gone. Their blankets they sleep with, they don't leave anywhere without them.
Good. Is any of her clothes, anything like that missing?
Yeah.
It didn't look like she went through and packed up a bag or anything.
All that with Bob's.
Did she tell you anything about leaving, moving out?
Not moving out. I mean, the last time I talked to her was this morning. She said she's going to take the kids to a friend's house, and then that's where she was going to be. And then I've texted her today and never heard anything. But cars here. Cars are here. Unless somebody came and picked her up. But the people that I know, nobody's heard from her, nobody's seen her.
In all missing person investigations, we usually want to start from the inside out. The people that are closest to the person that's missing, the person that last saw that person that's missing, Chris Watts, by his own words, was the last person that saw Shanann Watts.
This is her purse?
That's her purse. It's her medication. She takes these, her medication's still in here.
Along with the purse and Shanann's own medications, Celeste had a very significant allergy, causing Shanann to have to take with her an EpiPen everywhere she went. That EpiPen's on the countertop.
Her phone's here.
Does she work?
Yeah, she works from home.
Oh, from home?
She works, this is her lifeline.
The people that know Shanann know that she was very attached to her cell phone. That was something that she would never leave the house without. And to have the purse, her car, the car seats, all of those things still left inside seemed very, very strange.
You guys have any kind of issues, marital issues, or?
We're going through separation.
You are? Did you guys file it yet or anything, or just talking about
No, we're gonna sell the house and do a separation.
it? How's that going?
It's going
Civil for the most
civil.
part, or?
At that time, of course, we're thinking, is she just emotionally upset because they're having marital issues and she's taken off? Is she so distraught that maybe she's done something to herself, to her girls, or did someone hurt her and the girls?
People just fall out of love.
We had absolutely no idea which way this was going to go.
There are no signs that this investigation is slowing down in any way.
A team of investigators found a white sheet.
We were all in shock.
We've got red flags going up all over the place now.
Oh, On Monday, August 13th, we had a missing pregnant mom and her 2 young daughters. The pregnant mom was named Shanann Watts, and her little girls, Bella, who was 4, and Celeste, who was 3, were also missing.
People rarely leave without a trace. When little kids are involved especially, that's nearly impossible to just vanish the way that it seemed like Shanann, Bella, and Celeste had done.
Watts told the officer that when he leaves to go to work in his work truck at 5:30 or so in the morning, that Shanann is still in bed, that the girls are each in their own beds, and that's how he left them. While the officers are still over at the Watts home, they're contacted by the Watts neighbor, Nathan.
I knew that my security camera would catch any of Shanann leaving or someone coming in the house or her leaving with a friend.
Nate came forward and showed the police that surveillance video, and Chris was there too, and all this was captured on the body camera.
If any action would have happened, any cars or anything left your house, I would have
If it would have been like right in that area, it should have picked me.
Oh, it'll pick up anything coming down the street this way.
You know where that trigger is?
Oh, yeah. At 5:27 a.m., I had noticed that there was a motion on my camera of Chris backing his truck up into the driveway and then into the garage.
We usually park out there on the side and get everything back in. Be easier to lug everything out there, all the tools that I had to bring in.
What the video shows is Chris making several trips from the garage out to the driver's side of the vehicle, which is on the other side of the car from the angle that the camera is placed. So you can't see what, if anything, he's putting in the car per se.
Loading my stuff up in my coolers, my water jugs, my book bag, my computers, some of the tools that I have in the toolbox. I knew I was going to have to do some pumping into rubbers today. That's why I was out so far.
I was definitely hoping to catch Shanann leaving with Bella and Celeste. I was hoping we might catch somebody coming and picking them up to take them on a play date like Chris had said, but we had picked up no other motion or anything like that coming from their house.
The camera on the front of Nathan's house shows that truck leaving at 5:45, and the part of a thorough investigation at a very early stage is creating a timeline. What time did the husband leave? Where was the wife? Where were the children at these particular times? And they're really starting to fill in those gaps.
Chris, I had noticed that he wasn't watching the tape. He was looking down at his phone a lot, he was looking away a lot, and every time he did say something, he was trying to prove a point. No cars came through because I guarantee with the headlights, it picked up the headlights automatically.
And my Vivint said that at 5:27, my garage door was left open.
I definitely was watching Chris's body language, and at that point in time, he definitely could have been freaking out because his wife was gone and his children were gone. I just personally thought the way he was acting was a little strange. As a father, like, my eyes would have never left that screen.
No. The officer, even at this point in time, with the things that he is seeing, it has to keep an open mind. You can't start having tunnel vision on one person right away to the exclusion of everything else. But there's a sense that we need to start looking at this from a criminal investigation standpoint, not just a welfare check anymore.
We really needed to go back into the Watts residence and do a thorough forensic search of that house.
Hi, are you Chris? Chris, yes. Chris, Officer Lyons with the Frederick Police Department. This office Perez.
Chris was compliant, cooperative. Our CSIs went in and searched for evidence, bloodstains, signs of cleanup. We didn't see signs of struggle in the house. Things weren't knocked over. Things weren't broken and damaged.
They are really organized people.
Canines, cadaver dogs had gone through to pick up scents. We did notice the top sheet of the bed was missing, which we thought was a little out of place considering how clean everything else was. We didn't find any evidence inside the house.
The Frederick Police Department reached out to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, as well as the FBI, and requested assistance with a missing person investigation. We ran criminal histories on both Chris Watts and Shanann Watts. Neither one of them had a criminal record. So part of the investigation, I needed to know who Shanann was. And so I started looking at her Facebook page. I can kind of appreciate her attitude, I guess, sometimes. I come from a long line of Italian women, so we're very strong, sassy, assertive, and that's how I pictured Shanann. It was obvious she loved being a mom, she loved being a wife, and she loved what she did for work.
The Frederick Police Department, they did a neighborhood canvass, they knocked on a lot of doors, they started contacting businesses in the area that might have surveillance videos.
How are you? What's going on? We are looking for her and for her kids.
Tonight, police issued a missing endangered alert for Shanann Watts and her 2 daughters. Her husband says she's been missing since Monday morning.
I hope that she's somewhere safe right now and with the kids. I just want them back. I just want them to come back. And if they're not safe right now, that's what's tearing me apart. Because if they are safe, they're coming back. But if they're not, this has got to stop. Like, somebody has to come forward.
So we're all watching Chris's first interview basically live on the 5 o'clock news.
Did you guys get into an argument before she left?
It wasn't like an argument. We had an emotional conversation, but I'll leave it at that. But it's just, I want everybody to just come home. Like, wherever they're at, come home. That's what I want.
Chris talked about how he and his wife had an emotional conversation right before she went missing, which I thought was strange, that you would talk about that on the news.
Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back.
The concern that he professed to have for his wife and kids seemed very feigned, seemed very cold and calculated. Even though people grieved differently, he was so extraordinarily calm and was internally inconsistent in what he was saying and how he was saying it, that it raised a lot of red flags. It just really struck everyone as, what in the world is going on?
If my family was missing, I would be an absolute wreck. So the fact that he was clean cut, real calm, real cool, kind of seemed collected, definitely put a big red flag up for me.
I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here. Please bring her back.
I think we were all in shock, and I recall immediately turning around to a special agent coder of the FBI who I had never met before, and I just said, oh, we need him in a room with us that's recorded, and we need to get his story down right now. We had already predetermined that Special Agent Coder with the FBI would conduct the initial interview of Chris Watts at the police department, and then he would request that I conduct a polygraph with Chris later on. Chris was not a suspect. It's very important to not alienate Chris. And at this point, he knows the most about everything, and we really wanted him to help us find his family.
What do you think happened? At first, I really thought maybe she was just
at somebody's house. Just decompressing. Just pulling off steam. Yeah. But after today, like with the onslaught of, all the police cars, all the news, all the canine units, it's making me lean the other direction about someone took her. Okay. And it's freaking me out.
I was able to watch a live feed video of the interview as it was happening, and it was extremely important to get a baseline story from Chris.
This husband whose wife and children are missing, he's the last one to have seen them. He can give us the information that we need to help find them.
Special Agent Coder had Chris actually write out a written statement, and so they spent, several hours going over Chris's statement in great, great detail.
So, 1:40 a.m., doorbell detects a visitor. It showed Nicole dropping her off. Okay. 2 a.m., Shanann gets in bed with me. 4 a.m., that's when my alarm goes off for work. Start having a conversation with her about putting the house up for sale and talking about it. Proceeding with the separation. Okay. And it gets pretty emotional because we have 2 beautiful kids and we have 1 on the way.
At that point, we had Shanann's phone. And some of the things that we were learning from going through Shanann's phone is that she'd been talking to a lot of her girlfriends about Chris becoming very distant. They had even talked about counseling, and Chris was resistant.
It was very emotional. We were both crying. And at the end, we just said, she said she was going to take the kids to her friend's house for the day. And she would be back. Okay. I was like, okay. Looking back on that conversation, can you connect the dots between both of you being upset and crying, and here we are, and now she and the kids are gone? I think about, did I cause this? Did I make her feel like she needed to leave? Maybe she sat there and thought about it, do I really need to stay here right now? If he doesn't love me, maybe I should just go.
It seemed like Chris was definitely taking a small portion of responsibility for her disappearance. But I felt like Chris was not being honest and was not telling the complete story. At that point, Special Agent Coder really needed to kind of turn up the heat.
The day she goes missing is the day that you guys have marital discord. So you can understand what I'm thinking about you. Yeah. Makes me sick to my stomach, honestly. This is something that I would never do. Are you telling me the truth? I'm telling you the absolute truth. Why should I believe you? Because I'm a very trustworthy person.
Special Agent Coder has a very soft, soothing almost type of voice when he was talking to Chris. But at the same time, he was asking very, very tough questions.
Do you know where your wife is? I do not know where my wife is. Are you telling me the truth? I'm telling you the absolute truth. Okay.
We really hadn't seen any emotion from him up to that point, and we wanted to see if maybe faced with the pictures of the people that he said he loved and that are missing, to see if that would elicit any more information or any emotion from Chris.
She loves those shoes, even though they were winter shoes, but she loved those shoes. She always loves those shoes. Bella, she loved that dress. She loved those flip-flops. She was a girly girl.
If he is hoping and believing that they're still alive, so why would you start talking about them in past tense? That's obviously a red flag.
So I need to ask you about your marriage and infidelity. Sure. Okay, tell me about it. I have never cheated on my wife. Okay. And I fully suspect she has never done that to me. Oh, okay. I fully expect if we ever thought about straying another way, that we would tell each other before it happened. I think that sounds ridiculous. I gotta ask, what's her name? I don't have another one. You sure? I'm sure. Okay.
I definitely needed to know what was the reason for the separation. What was the reason behind wanting to possibly end his marriage? If you weren't having an affair, Chris, what is it?
Why are you falling out of love? I couldn't be myself around Shanann anymore. Does that make sense at all? The timing doesn't make sense to me. People just fall out of love. And that's where I was. I gotta tell you, that sounds like a load of horse shit. I know.
There's what Chris is saying, and there's what Chris is not saying. Chris was not imploring us to go find his family. He was not giving us additional tips to follow up on. He did not honestly seem interested in the investigation. So Special Agent Coder needed Chris to try and explain his actions.
I can tell that there's just something you're not telling me. Why you're not telling me, but there's something that's making you a little bit uncomfortable tonight.
Our initial thought was to do a polygraph that evening, just so we could either determine if he had something to do with her disappearance or we could rule him out. But his interview with Special Agent Coder was over close to 3 hours. It was past 10 o'clock. He's tired. It's not an ideal situation to try and start a polygraph that can be very extensive. And we really wanted to start fresh with him. So at that point, we asked Chris if he would come back the next day for a polygraph.
So can we say that tomorrow at 11 o'clock? Sure. We can do a polygraph? Sure. Here.
When Chris left that evening, investigators spent the entire evening combing through his computer records, cell phone records, and what we learned from that analysis really changed the entire course of the investigation.
The disappearance of a pregnant Frederick woman and her 2 children has captured the nation's attention.
Shanann Watts and her 2 young daughters haven't been seen in the last 2 days.
Police say Watts, who is 15 weeks pregnant, and her 2 daughters, Celeste, age 3, and Bella, age 4, haven't been seen since Monday morning, gone without a trace from the family's home in Frederick.
This is something that happens in the movies. My next door neighbors are actually missing. That's a hard pill to swallow. You start thinking about things like they don't have their medicine, she doesn't have her wallet, how is she staying somewhere? She doesn't have keys, she doesn't have any money. But of course you hold on to that hope, but deep down it was like, something is wrong.
From the beginning of this case, it was important to have as many resources on the ground as possible. We sent out a missing and endangered media alert, and we also worked with Frederick Police Department to organize a roadside canvass.
Did you by chance hear about the woman children that went missing on Monday over here?
Yeah, it's all over Facebook.
This is a very visible effort on the part of Frederick Police to make sure the word is out about Shanann.
There are no signs that this investigation is slowing down in any way. It is a very, very active investigation at that point. Crime scene analysts are still combing through Chris's residence. We're still following up on leads. Witnesses are being interviewed. Tips are coming in. And obviously, we were hoping so much that Shanann would just show up with the girls.
Go ahead and have a seat right here, Chris.
When Chris arrived for the polygraph that morning, he was with his father that he had just picked up from the airport. So Special Agent Coder brought his father, Ronnie Watts, out to another room.
So how are you feeling today?
I'm sick to my stomach, honestly.
Shortly before Agent Tammy Lee from the CBI is going to conduct this polygraph examination, investigators learned information that they had not known before. We looked at Watts's phone. It was revealed to investigators through text messages, photographs, emails, that he very clearly and for quite a period of time had been having an affair with a coworker at the oil company that he worked at. He had been lying to Graham Coder the day before. If you're going to be deceitful with law enforcement about that, what else have you been deceitful about?
It changes for us the possible motive. If Chris did do something to his wife and children, this could be the catalyst for that. Or if she left, did she really know about this other person? It kind of brings a whole different dynamic into the investigation.
The first day I thought, okay, she was just somewhere.
Sure.
And after yesterday, all the activity at my house, it went to the other extreme. I've just been like sick to my stomach that either somebody has her or she's in trouble and the kids are not safe either.
Right.
With this new information she's got about the affair, she has to be careful because there is a fine line to walk there between employing investigative techniques to get the information that you need while not going so far as to completely cause a suspect to shut down.
There's actually only 2 ways you can fail a polygraph, okay? The first way would be if you fail to follow my instructions. The second way would be if you choose to lie to me.
Obviously, my wheels are turning in my head, but at the same time, I didn't want to give him any indication that I knew about the affair.
I hope that You know, if you did have something to do with their disappearance, it would be really stupid for you to come in and take a polygraph today.
Exactly.
Right? Like, it would be really dumb. Like, you should not be here right now sitting in this chair if you had anything to do with Shanann and the little girl's disappearance, okay?
I was putting Chris on high alert that the truth was about to come out and everyone was gonna know what it was. I definitely wanted to see if Chris was going to keep lying about the infidelity, so I brought up if he was having an affair.
Did she accuse you of anything?
I mean, being a woman, I mean, she's like, is there somebody else? I'm like, no, there's nobody else. I mean,
Did she seem like she believed that?
when I told her there's nobody else, yeah, she knows that I wouldn't do that to her.
This is a very, in the grand scheme of things, a very small thing for him to be lying about when his wife and daughters are missing for 48 hours. Why are you lying about having an affair?
The pre-test interview with Chris lasted close to 3 hours. I felt like I had received all the information I was going to get from Chris. At that point, it was time to start the polygraph examination.
And the coolest thing about this is right now, there's only one person in this room that knows what the truth is. And in about 5 minutes, there's gonna be 2 of us.
I wanted Chris to know that the gig is up. If he had something to do with her death, I was about to find out.
Did you physically cause Shanann's disappearance?
No.
Are you lying about the last time you saw Shanann?
No.
Do you know where Shanann is now?
No.
This portion of the test is complete. Please remain still while I take the instrument out of operation.
At that point, I took my computer out of the room to grade the charts. Grading scale, for someone who is a truth teller, we would consider them to be a +2 or higher, and we would consider someone to be deceptive if they were a -4 and below. Chris Watts scored a -18. He failed every question on the test.
That deception on that polygraph causes Watts to become our primary suspect.
On August 15th, we've got Chris being interviewed by our investigators at the CBI, and simultaneously a team of investigators had been taking photographs of the area from where at that time Chris Watts worked, an oil field known as Survey 319, and they found a white sheet. Knowing that the bed was stripped, first thing we wanted to do was find out if the pattern on those sheets matched. They also found an area of disturbed dirt. We started thinking shallow grave. We've got red flags going up all over the place now.
The results of the polygraph that Watts took showed deception. In other words, he failed.
Now we're shifting, right? We're shifting to interrogation mode. How can we get Chris to tell us what the truth is?
So I brought Graham in here because we want to talk to you about the results, okay?
Sure.
When I walked back in the room with Special Agent Coder, my attitude had completely changed on purpose. I was no longer Chris's friend. I was no longer this joyful investigator that's just here to administer this polygraph. Now I'm here for the truth.
You did not pass the polygraph test.
Okay.
Okay.
I did not lie on this polygraph. I am.
It's not even an option right now because you did not pass the polygraph, so I know you were being deceptive. So that's not even an issue right now. The issue right now is what happened to Shanann, Bella, and Celeste.
Like, I want them back home, like.
But you know they're not coming back home.
I was shutting down his continued plea for his wife and kids to come home, because at that point we knew that was not going to happen. And I felt like he had done something horrible to his wife and the kids.
This is where the rubber meets the road, Chris.
Immediately after he's confronted with the deception, within just a couple of minutes, he starts to offer investigators a reason as to why maybe he showed deception on the polygraph. And he chooses the most innocuous thing that he could possibly admit to.
I cheated on her. I'm not proud of it. So I don't want to get her involved in this. I don't want to ruin her life.
We knew all about Nikki. So we didn't need to ask you about her in the polygraph. We just didn't need to, because we knew, okay?
Special Agent Coder kind of adds that in at the end, you know. We knew way more than we're letting on. It was just kind of the gateway to finding out what the bigger lie was, because we knew it wasn't just about the affair.
This should have been a time in your marriage where you guys were happy and thriving and productive, okay? And I believe that Shanann's the reason none of that happened.
You know, it's common in these types of cases that there's some victim blaming, so that it's easier for the suspect to say, yeah, it wasn't all just me. Like, I did it because they pushed me to it, or I was forced to do it, giving Chris a possible reason as to why this would have happened.
I believe that she's a controlling person. Maybe doesn't listen to you as much as she should. I think that she can do whatever she wants and you can't.
Agent Coder and Agent Lee are providing him other alternatives, other possibilities as to what may have happened, other reasons that something may have happened, in an effort to try to see what his reaction is going to be.
Chris, did Shanann do something to them?
No, I don't know.
I'm serious.
I have no clue.
No, you would have known, because they didn't leave the house. Did Shanann do something to them, and then did you feel like you had to do something to Shanann?
They were at the house when I left. They were there.
Vilifying Shanann, it's a technique that we can use to eventually get the actual truth. We just needed to find Shanann and the girls.
Maybe Shanann did it, and you felt compelled to fix this so Shanann didn't look bad. I feel like you cleaned up for her. But I don't know, you're not telling me that, so it makes me think the worst. Like, did you do that to all three of them?
I did not do anything with these kids.
He was definitely more deflated. He was kind of hanging his head down. He kind of seemed exhausted from it all, honestly.
Can I talk to my dad or something? I just can't talk to my dad. Like, I flew across the country.
Watts makes a request of the investigators to speak to his father. They have to make a decision on the spot. They don't have an opportunity to make a phone call to their supervisor. They don't have an opportunity to call somebody from the DA's office and say, hey, what do you think I need to do?
There were so many things in play at that moment that it was such a risky move, and we had to really make a split-second decision on whether we could allow Ronnie Watts into the interrogation room or not.
Hey, Crash, how about this? If we brought your dad in here, would you please tell him what happened? Can I go out there and talk to him? Well, I don't know that you want to do it out there because there's a lot of people going through the halls. Should we bring him in here?
We'll step out. Okay.
Do you need a few minutes with him? Okay.
You have him on the ropes. You can see it. The risk you run is that a father, Ronnie Watts, walks into the room, turns into the protective father for his son, and tells him, you need a lawyer.
Hey, Chris.
He lawyers up, this interview's over.
Tell us, Chris.
Can I talk to my dad or something?
Special Agent Coder and I agreed to allow Chris's father to come into the room.
Hey, Chris, we're gonna let you have however much time you need, okay? Sure.
You know, Chris was not in custody. Chris had every right to walk out of that room at any moment. So we were trying to appease Chris, if you will. We wanted him to know, you know, your father wants to know what the truth is. He flew across the country to support you, and he's not going to stop supporting you just because you tell him what happened.
We had absolutely no idea which way this is going to go. Is he going to come in and protect his son and shut us down, or is he going to encourage him to tell the truth?
As soon as Ronnie entered the room, Special Agent Coder and I had pretty much ran to the observation room in order to watch the interview. It was definitely a make or break moment. They were speaking very quietly, so everyone in the command post was silent.
Tell what's going on, or this polygraph failed it. Too much emotions. So I mean, they're not gonna let me go. Is there any reason why they shouldn't? They know I had an affair. Anything else you want to tell me? What's going on? I don't want to protect her. What? I don't want to protect her. She hurt him? Yeah. I thought that hurt her. She choked both of them to death. I freaked out in the champagne. She killed those 16 and choked them to death. That's just rage. I'm bad.
It was pretty much gut-wrenching to hear Chris talk about the fact that he murdered his wife to his own father. It was the theme of Shanann doing something to the girls that I had just given him prior to leaving the room, but to actually hear that come out of his mouth was shocking.
We always have that hope that we will recover Shanann and the girls safe and sound, that they'll be fine, but your heart sinks because it's real that he admitted that the girls are dead and that he killed Shanann.
We knew immediately we needed to get back in there. I could tell Chris was not comfortable with me rubbing his shoulder, but that I was okay with that. I wanted him to be uncomfortable, and I wanted him to look at me and to focus back on our questions.
Will you tell us what you told your dad?
I saw on the monitor, those covers were like pulled off and she was laying there. Boom. She was in there with her.
What happened?
I put my hands around my wife's neck and did that same thing.
He describes feeling extremely angry, so he basically grabs Shanann, throws her down on the bed, and strangles her right on Cece's bed, is what he said.
This was him seizing upon an opportunity to shift the blame away from himself as much as he could and towards somebody that no longer could defend herself. It is crucial at this point in time that we find out where they are so that we can really start working on the homicide investigation portion of this to make sure that once he's handcuffed and once he's put in jail, he's never getting out.
Where are they now? To find your babies. Did the hard part. All you have left is to tell us where they're at.
It's gone. There's no bringing them back.
Internally, there's outrage. I didn't want to show that to him because I really wanted Chris to keep talking. It was very hard.
Well, where are they?
At that first location I went to that day. It's 319.
So, Chris, are they in something? Are they under the ground? Like, where would you find them? You take us out there?
I thought there's no way I wanted to walk there. Are they all three out there, Chris? Yes.
Chris talked about the area being very vast. He talked about it being maybe 10 miles by 20 miles. So to me, it was very, very important that he actually describe in detail where they were at that site, just because there were so many different places where he could have buried them or hidden them.
What is that?
It's the Surgery 319.
Okay. Whereabouts is Shanann and the girls? Okay, can you mark it for me? The S for Shanann, okay. And where are the girls at?
Here. Are they in the tanks?
What's in the tanks?
It's a mixture of oil and water.
I just couldn't believe a father could do something so horrible to his children and his wife.
There was a sheet found down here?
Mm-hmm.
Where's that from?
That was what Shanann was wrapped in.
I was completely disgusted. I felt sick. But at the same time, I was like, we need to go get them. We need to go get them right now. I knew everyone's lives were going to be changed from that moment on.
I would hate for Shanann to get a bad rap if she didn't have anything to do with it. You know, it's not fair. It's not fair.
Shanann's pregnant, she's exhausted. I don't believe she's gonna wake up, after 2-3 hours of being home from a trip, then to go murder her 2 daughters. To me, that made no sense at all.
So, you want to tell us the truth?
That is the truth.
So you're good with the public knowing that Shanann killed her daughters?
I did not hurt these girls.
Are you okay with the public knowing that Shanann?
Yes, because I did not hurt these girls.
I did not believe at all that Shanann had done anything to her family to hurt them. I believed that Chris murdered his entire family.
He shook my hand hours after he did this to his family.
Our goal was to get that family back together as soon as possible.
We all struggled with the fact that we didn't know what the truth was.
The interview that he gave is worse than any of us could have possibly imagined.
My daddy is a hero. He helps me grow up strong. He helped me snuggle too. He reads me books. He ties my shoes. If you're a hero, blue and blue, my daddy, I love you.
When Chris told his father that Shanann had killed the girls and that he had then killed Shanann, even though I didn't necessarily believe his version of events and I didn't buy into his description of how it went down, there was a sense that we were progressing.
Hey, Chris, do you mind if we take pictures of your hands and chest and stuff? Just
Based on his statements, we had probable cause to believe that he had committed the crime of murder. That's the legal threshold that we need to get to arrest him.
Chris, go and stand up for me. I'm gonna have you face that wall over there.
At the conclusion of the interrogation, officers came in, placed Chris Watts in handcuffs, took him out to a patrol car, and he was transported to the Weld County Jail.
We're not gonna wait till the next day. Our goal was to get that family back together as soon as possible. About 11 o'clock at night, we started to excavate the dirt. We wanted to get Shanann out of the ground if that's in fact where she was. In the numerous excavations I've done, bodies are usually laid out. Shanann was curled up as if just thrown in. It was almost discarded like trash and then covered with dirt. Chris Watts said that the children were in the oil tanks. The problem is getting them out of those tankers was a very complicated process that we knew. It was now 1:30 at night. We weren't going to be able to do that evening.
At this point, we have strong reason to believe that we know where the bodies of the children are, and recovery efforts are in process on that.
When we were at the oil site on the morning of the 16th, I think everybody there kind of arrived with this sense of dread because you know what the mission is. You know that you're recovering the bodies of 2 small children.
This is going to be a huge undertaking to drain these tanks.
We questioned whether small children would fit through that opening.
We also couldn't see them, when we opened the hatch from the top. So there was a point where we thought he could still be lying.
One of my CSIs went up and opened the inlet, and we found a tuft of hair along the inside of one of the oil tank inlets, and then we knew.
What a horrible, horrible thought that is. Looking at those oil tanks and seeing the size of the hatch at the top, and then to have to pull them out of that oil, I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy.
The first tank was the one that had Cece in it. She was still in her nightgown. She'd just gone to bed. The second tank had Bella inside. I can't get that image out of my head.
I don't see how somebody who loves their family could even possibly do something like that.
I've been doing this for over 30 years. I've investigated or been a part of an investigation of over 170 homicides. And I don't get emotional very often. I'm able to detach myself to a certain degree. I was not able to detach myself from this.
There is the arduous task of determining a cause and manner of death. Are there injuries consistent with his version of events?
The pathologist concluded that Shanann Watts had died from asphyxiation due to manual strangulation.
The most significant injuries that we found during the autopsy were injuries to Bella. She had injuries which suggested that she fought back as somebody covered her airway. The idea of her fighting for her life as somebody snuffed out her breath was hard to accept.
And then Chris had told us that he had witnessed Shanann strangling Cece, but the pathologist determined that she died from asphyxiation due to manual smothering. We were able to prove through that autopsy that what Chris told us about what Shanann had done to Cece was false, and that he had lied to us.
We left the autopsies feeling that Chris Watts was solely responsible for the deaths of his entire family.
Under Colorado law, an unborn child can't be the victim of a homicide, but there has to be a recognition that he killed his unborn son. His unborn son is named Nico. They had named him that. So we charged him with the only charge available to us under Colorado law to give us that recognition that Nico was also a victim of his father's acts. The charge that I had available to us is called wrongful termination of a pregnancy.
We knew that there was another woman who was romantically involved with Chris Watts. As soon as we got her name, she called in to the tip line and said, "Hey, I'm the other woman," essentially. And after investigating, we were confident that she had no role to play in this tragic event.
Mr. Watts, why did you kill your wife and 2 children?
Today, prosecutors filed a motion requesting fingerprints, cheek swabs, and hand pictures from Chris Watts. They believe Watts is responsible for all 3 deaths.
It was just utter disgust and shock. He did that, and he was standing in my house hours afterward.
Hopefully something comes up, dude.
I think that was one of the toughest things to swallow.
No.
Is knowing that he shook my hand hours after he did this to his family.
We were preparing for a murder trial, and a murder trial that was going to last years. And all of a sudden, I receive a phone call from Detective Baumover, and he said, "Hey, Chris is going to plead guilty to all charges."
Christopher Watts has pleaded guilty to killing his pregnant wife, Shanann, and 2 young daughters, Bella and Celeste, and their unborn son, Nico.
Whoa, wait, like, we're not done. We have all these things to do. We didn't examine all the evidence. We didn't interview every witness we needed to. We didn't do all of these things that you would do in a normal investigation because he stopped the clock. We were relieved that it was going to be over, but at the same time, we felt like, in a sense, we didn't finish.
Mr. Watts entered a plea of guilty to all 9 counts. Those counts include murder in the first degree after deliberation as to Shanann Watts, murder in the first degree as to Bella Watts, murder in the first degree as to Celeste Watts, unlawful termination of a pregnancy as it relates to Nico Watts. The one deal that he made for himself was that if he pled guilty to all those charges, that he would not be subject to the death penalty. The only way that I'm going to accept that offer is if that is absolutely what Shanann's family wants.
Present here in the room with us today is Frank Rusick, Sandra Rusick, and Frank Rusick Jr., Shanann's brother, mom and dad. Sandy said it very, very poignantly to me. She said, he made the choice to take those lives. I do not want to be in a position of making the choice to take his. And that was very compelling to all of us as we were talking about how to proceed on this case.
Ultimately, Chris Watts was sentenced to 3 life sentences plus 84 years in prison.
While we got some satisfaction with the fact that we knew that he would never have the opportunity to hurt anyone else again, we were all left with the fact that the story was not over.
Come give me hugs.
We all struggled with the fact that we didn't know what the truth was. By pleading guilty, he had admitted that he had murdered his entire family, but he had never told us what really happened to Bella and Celeste that night. They deserved to have their story told, and we needed to vindicate Shanann's memory, that Shanann loved her girls, and that she didn't have anything to do with their murders.
Tonight, Watts sits in a Wisconsin prison serving his 3 life sentences without any possibility of parole.
The district attorney told us is that they considered making a part of the plea agreement that Christopher Watts would have to confess more about what happened that night.
So myself, Special Agent Coder, and Detective Baumover, we flew to Wisconsin, where Chris was being held, and have one last conversation with him. Myself, Special Agent Coder, and Detective Baumover, we flew to Wisconsin, where Chris was being held, and have one last conversation with him. I needed to hear him say that Shanann did not murder her children. I needed to have that come out of his mouth.
The last time we talked to you was a different situation, right? Our investigation was open and your case was open. All of our cases are closed and the court case is closed. So there's nothing that we're going to talk about today that's going to get you in any type of more trouble at all. Are you available to talk to us?
Definitely.
Okay. The last thing we talked about was where the girls were, but we never really got to talk about that night. So what happened?
I told her I didn't love her anymore, and that's when it happened. I got on top of her. And every time I think about it, I'm just like, did I know I was going to do that before I got on top of her?
He talked about having the conversation while he's sitting on her and she's telling him to get off. You know, you're hurting the baby. And he doesn't get off. And at one point she tells him, you're never going to see the kids again. And that's immediately when he starts strangling her.
So what happened next?
Yeah, she had her little pink blanket with her. She was like, what's wrong? Tell me, Mommy.
And where was Shanann at that point?
Yeah, just pretty much on the bed, but she was face down.
Bella understood what was happening or saw what was happening. In Chris's mind, what do you do with your daughter that just is witnessing your wife dead on the bed? Did he feel like he had no other way to get out of this without doing the same to his daughters?
So she followed you and you put Shanann in the truck. Okay. And then what?
Put my lunchbox and stuff in the truck and then grabbed the kids and then put them in.
So you put Shanann in the truck and then you put the 2 girls in the truck. Shanann was back there too?
She was on the floor.
What did they say about Shanann being on the floor?
Mommy, okay?
What did you tell her?
She'll be fine. I didn't want the girls looking at Shanann while they were in the back seat.
So what'd you do?
I put a trash bag on one end and on her feet and on her head so they didn't have to see.
We had never, nobody had ever contemplated, that I recall, in any discussion, that the girls were alive when he drove them out to the oil site.
When I was driving up there, I mean, they were just, kind of asleep or kind of just like, holding on to each other, laying in each other's laps.
They were alive in your truck. You now had an hour to drive out to the oil site, and at no point did he decide to spare their lives, and it made no sense to us.
Took Shanann out, and then... What were the girls doing when you were here? Just sitting in the back of the truck. CC was hers.
He used his hands to cover her mouth and her nose and smothered her to death. As soon as he knew that CC was dead, he took her out of the truck. All the while, Bella is sitting in the truck, watching her dad walk up to the oil tank and drop her sister inside.
And then went down to Bella. Tell me what happened there.
It was the same thing.
Chris told us that every night when he closes his eyes, he hears Bella yell, "Daddy, no." I feel like it's kind of what he deserves. I hope he hears that every night. He didn't even cry for them. Like, I've cried more for them than he has. Like, who does that?
Is it possible that in your mind you didn't want them to suffer throughout their life? Was this like a mercy thing?
I mean, you can say that like after the fact, but it was just like, I don't...
You didn't feel like that,
I just didn't feel like it was just like an anger with Shanann, with everything that I was just taking it out on everybody that was in front of me that morning.
The interview that he gave is worse than any of us could have possibly imagined.
At the end of a case, usually you get a feeling of, okay, I've got a sense of the why. The why never materialized here.
I was on a mission. I was on a mission to get justice for Shanann, Nico, Bella, and Celeste. And when I felt like I did my job, that Friday when I got home, I kissed my kids, I walked upstairs, and I collapsed on the floor, and I just started crying. A lot of people ask me, do you believe him? Do you believe that final version was the truth? And I have to say yes, because it was more horrible than I had even let my mind go to. This was a complete act of evil by Chris Watts.
Shanann wanted to make a difference in life, and she thrived every day to make that happen. She had a lot of close friends, a lot of close family. She loved those girls. Her life revolved around those girls, Bella and Celeste. They're great, wonderful children. Their lives mattered to everybody. They are very loved, and she did make a difference.
I love you, girl.
I got the baby a hug.
You want to give the baby a hug?
There are two silver linings. One is that at least we were afforded an opportunity to give Shanann, Bella, Celeste, Nico, and her family closure. The other silver lining is that I can go to sleep every night knowing that the defendant will never walk this earth again.
Every other case I've had, I've been able to put the pieces together. There's been signs in the past. There's things we can point to and say, look, he was a violent person before, whatever. Nothing about this case makes sense to me, but I still have to live my life, and I need to do as much good as I can for the rest of the time I have here. Hopefully counteract some of the evil.
For more about criminal confessions, go to oxygen.com.